All right, welcome to Module 1, Week 2. Now, this week is all about stress. We've gotten so much positive feedback about Week 1 that I just cannot wait for you guys to continue on progressing through the course because the material is going to get more and more complex in the best ways possible. And so just providing that value is super exciting. So in this module, we're going to talk about how to master your Oura ring. Now, thankfully, a lot of you guys already have your Oura ring. A lot of you guys know how to use it on a basic baseline, but this module is going to be all about how to master it, how to read your data efficiently, and applying variables to reach the desired goal. So what we're going to cover is what each metric means with Oura, the key metrics you need to focus on, how to read trends in the data, what variables you need to change in order to achieve the desired goal, and troubleshooting, so why certain metrics don't change and what to do about it. Now, I want to start off by saying a quote because I felt like this one was very applicable. Data is like garbage. You better know what you're going to do with it before you collect it. Now, a lot of people buy a Fitbit or some, heart rate monitor, but they don't actually know how to use the data, and it's ultimately useless because the data itself is irrelevant unless you know how to read it. So this module is going to basically unpack that and give you all the tools to actually understand your Oura metrics so they're not just random numbers sitting on your screen and they're never changing. And an overview. This is for those people who are very new to Oura Ring or don't know exactly what it tracks. So with Oura, looking at the dashboard, it gives you 3 overall scores. Now, instead of looking at hundreds and hundreds of different variables, what they did for your user consumption and easier processing is they took these 3 scores and calculated all of the ones under each topic and gave you one clean score to look at. Now, in your readiness tab, this includes your resting heart rates, your HRV, and your temperature fluctuations. In the sleep category, it covers your sleep duration, your time in bed, your REM levels, your deep levels, your restfulness, latency, and timing. Now, for those who don't know, latency is how long it takes for you to fall asleep from when you get in bed to when you actually fall asleep. And activity is calories burned, daily steps, walking equivalent, and activity levels. Now you'll notice that sleep is the longest category. This is because Oura Ring is meant for their sleep metrics, not really for heart rate tracking or activity levels. And this is what makes Oura Ring great because Oura Ring is the only ring on the market that is snug on your skin, and that's why they are so efficient and accurate when it comes to sleep, because a lot of other trackers like Fitbit, Whoop, Apple Watch, all those things are on your wrist. Now, a lot of the times that wrist isn't skin tight 24/7 when you're wearing it. So Oura Ring is the only tracker that really sits snugly on your skin and can give accurate vitals because of that snug fit. And with all of those metrics, there's only a couple that you should really focus on. So of course, the 3 grouped numbers, so the readiness score, the sleep score, and the activity score. But below that, there are a couple that you should be focusing on. So those 4 are your HRV, your REM and deep levels, your temperature, and your steps. Now I'll go a little into why these are the 4 most important and why they should be looked at closely on an everyday basis. So your HRV, or your heart rate variability, your HRV is the distance in between each heartbeat. If you have 60 seconds, your heart is not going to beat exactly 60 times. There's going to be a variety in between each beat. The more variety, the better relationship in between each nervous system. So your HRV is a great marker for stress and inflammation. Now, if you look at the graph below, this will actually show you the milliseconds in between each heartbeat. Some are shorter and some are longer. This is actually showing you the balance in between each nervous system, your rest and digest, and your fight or flight. So just to give you another visual of what exactly your HRV does. So imagine seeing, both of your nervous systems, your rest and digest, and your fight or flight. If you have a healthy relationship between both of these, because you want to be in both of them. You don't want to be in just one or the other. You're going to have this very, almost like beautiful dance in between the 2. So when you go back and forth between rest and digest and fight or flight, you're going to be in balance between both of them. When you're in balance like this, it gives you more preparation, more performance, more resiliency to take on stressors and challenges. And this is where the variation comes from. So the more variety in between the rest and digest and the fight or flight response, the more variety you're going to have in your heartbeats. Now, if we look at someone who is chronically stressed, this is what their HRV is going to look like. So let's draw the two nervous systems, the rest and digest and the fight or flight. If you're someone who's chronically stressed and you're always in the fight or flight response and barely in the other one, you're not going to have that much variety. Your heartbeat is going to beat faster, and therefore you're going to have less variety, resulting in the lower HRV score. Now, the higher your HRV, the better. That means more resilience, more adaptation, better performance, because your nervous system is acting accordingly. It has no problem switching between the two. But the lower HRV score is a sign that you are constantly in the fight or flight response, and therefore you have shorter variety. So this means you could be, chronically stressed, you could have a late meal, or you've had alcohol. So we'll get into exactly what causes your HRV to rise or lower. Now, the average score is, looking at this graph, you can see your age and where it should be. I would say the average score is around 60. Now, it depends on obviously your age and your activity levels, and as well as genetics. Now, even though this is the HRV average by age, it's really important to actually have self-reflection and understand how you feel physiologically, because we've had some clients where their HRV is lower than average, but they feel great, and they get caught up in chasing the numbers in order to raise it. But obviously this, comes down to certain things that you can't fix. So your demographic, your age, your genetics, all these things play into what your HRV is. So I think it's important to look at your trends and see where you were previously and see where you want to go, and implement everything that we're going to talk about in this module, and just look at the overall trend and the month-by-month basis to see if it lowers or raises. Now, if you want to improve your HRV, there's a couple things that you should look into. So, smart exercise. Now, you can have too much exercise and too little exercise. That's why it's important to understand your threshold and really implement it smartly. So, if you're someone who is jet lagged, you just got off the plane and you really want to be proactive, you want to go to the hotel gym, but you're really not feeling recovered, but you still go anyways because you're stuck in this kind of discipline mode, that is not smart. Your body needs to recover, and your HRV will show this. As well as consistent meal times. So your body is always trying to adapt and predict when you're going to do things. And because your body is an adaptation machine, it's always going to try and find things to become more efficient. So if you're someone who, consistently has a dinner around 6 or 7, but one night you stayed up, you're working late, and you have dinner around, 10 p.m., 11, your body's not going to like that. So your HRV might dip because of that. And then you have to, look at water, hydration, and minerals. So a lot of the times people just say, drink more water, but why are you drinking water in the first place? It's not because of the H2O. Your cells can actually create H2O through cellular respiration. What your body actually needs is minerals. So when you're looking at hydrating, are you getting electrolytes? Are you taking a magnesium supplement? These are all things that will help with hypertension, blood sugar balance, and your HRV as well. And then avoiding alcohol. So I think Whoop conducted a study where they were following a couple athletes at colleges, and they were just tracking their heart rates. And of course, these athletes were in college, they're going out and partying, and they were just tracking their vitals. And on average, the athletes that went out on the weekend to drink, their HRV was severely affected the day after, but it actually stayed lower for 4 to 5 days after the night of drinking. So I can't recommend staying away from alcohol enough. Of course, there's a certain times where you want to go out and have fun with friends, but that should be a very, very minimal amount. I would almost recommend like once every, couple months, if that. And then also getting natural sunlight. So a lot of you guys are stuck in your office. You are absorbing lots of artificial light from your screens, from your lights above your head. But it's very important to get outside and actually get natural sun exposure. And then intentional breathing. So intentional breathing and cold therapy both activate your vagus nerve as well as the gratitude. So all of these things play into the positive mindset, activating the vagus nerve, activating the rest and digest nervous system. And all of these things will be beneficial in improving your HRV and overall nervous system. Now, looking at single day metrics for HRV. Managing your HRV by looking at it on a daily basis will ensure you lower stress and inflammation in order to reach peak performance while fine-tuning your exercise. So if you have, your HRV score and you're looking at it on a daily basis and it's high, depending on your individual metric, let's say it's around 80 or 90, which is high for you, this means you are well recovered, your stress is down, perhaps that night prior when you're falling asleep, you were in a calm, cool bedroom, and your meals are on point, so no unexpected late meals or skipping of meals. Now, to troubleshoot this, if you have a lower HRV and you don't know why, here's a couple things to look at. So you exercised too heavily, so the traveling, you're not recovered well, but you wanted to work out anyways, that could lead to a lower HRV. You ate a large meal or you ate junk food, so a lot of the times people will eat clean and then they'll have that cheat meal and then the next day they'll wake up, feeling inflamed, they'll have brain fog, their HRV will be, in the gutter. That could be why. And you're also dealing with stress. So a lot of our clients, they have to put out fires in their business. They're dealing with stress. That can also lower your HRV because you don't have that balance in between your rest and digest and your fight or flight response. You are dehydrated or drank alcohol, so that's a huge one. I've noticed this personally with having a night out with friends on a Friday, and then Saturday I wake up and I felt like I got a good night's rest, but alcohol really has the worst effect on your sleep, on your HRV, on inflammation levels, and your liver. So don't even get me started on what it does to your liver. But when you drink alcohol, you are automatically getting dehydrated. And a lot of the times people will drink, tap water, bottled water, but it's not actually containing the minerals. And so you get more dehydrated as a result. Or you might have a hot bedroom. So for some of you guys who live in a mild climate where AC isn't required or necessary, that's where I live. I live in Seattle, Washington, so it's very rare to have a house that has AC because our summers don't get too hot. But when you do have those random hot days, the hot bedroom can really offset your HRV and your nervous system. And monitoring temperature. So our body temperature reveals a lot of information about our health. Our temperature provides an insight into hormonal health. It can assist us with training and recovery. Women can use it to determine the stage of their cycle, their menstrual cycles. And even temperature fluctuations during the day can help one learn if they're utilizing food for energy or being reliant upon adrenal energy. Now, we're going to go over intermittent fasting and why Billy and I don't believe in it, but this is a great example kind of showcasing why. When you're fasting, obviously you're not eating foods. So what are you running off of? You're running off of stress hormones. Now, what is the one thing entrepreneurs don't need more of? Stress hormones. So this is why we don't recommend intermittent fasting for any entrepreneur under any circumstances. And, looking at your temperature helps you realize if you're using food for energy or you're, reliant upon adrenal energy. So just as a recap, your temperature can tell you, cycles for women. It can also tell you potential illness. So if your temperature raises, unexpectedly, it could be because you're getting sick, and it gives you your internal heat and disrupted circadian rhythm. So looking at your temperature, if you are hot when you first wake up and you are cold when you're going to bed, that could be a sign that your circadian rhythm is not functioning optimally and your melatonin cortisol levels are not synchronized, because ideally you want your coldest temperature to be right when you wake up. Because when you're sleeping during REM levels, your body temperature actually drops tremendously. I think it's around 97, almost by a full degree, because when you're sleeping, your internal thermometer, you can call it, actually turns off during REM, and your body becomes more susceptible and absorbs the temperature in your bedroom. So that's why if your bedroom is really hot unexpectedly, you have a really hard time sleeping and you're very restless. This is because your body can't reach the optimal temperature it needs to, efficiently reach REM levels. Now, conversely, if you sleep in a bedroom that's optimally cool, your body has no problem reaching that optimal temperature level. And so sleep is deeper, it's more efficient, it's less restful, and you wake up feeling extremely refreshed. Now, the downside with Oura is that it doesn't tell you exactly what your temperature is. So for example, 98.6, 97, whatever it may be, it doesn't tell you the actual numbers, it just gives you fluctuations. So it finds your baseline, and then on a daily basis, it shows you the fluctuations depending if you go a little bit over or a little under your baseline. Now, the issue with this is that when it comes to your temperature, everyone should be functioning around 98 degrees. but a lot of doctors are proclaiming that, 97 works as well. This is not right. That's not okay. Your temperature should be a strong, solid 98 or 99 degrees. The reason being is because with a lot of the information and a lot of the nutrition advice out on the internet, when it comes to veganism and, actual protein deficiencies, your metabolism isn't functioning how it should be, and you almost enter a state of hibernation. And when you enter a state of hibernation, your body slows down in order to conserve energy, and so your body temperature drops. So a lot of vegans, they don't get enough protein and they eat, lots of polyunsaturated fats, lots of things that aren't helping their metabolic fitness. And because of that, their temperature drops. And since so many people are doing this nowadays, it's become the new normal and it's been accepted in society. Now, protein deficiency is just one example of this, but there are many more. So people who go on fad diets, or people who try and lose tons of weight super suddenly, or let's say you're eating a diet full of PUFAs, which is polyunsaturated fats. That's something we'll get into in the later weeks, which is something you should avoid like the freaking plague. It's so bad for you. It's bad for your liver. It clogs up your cellular respiration and just creates a whole host of issues. People are saying that that is the main cause of diabetes. But yeah, like I said, we'll cover that in the next couple weeks. But PUFAs, what I just talked about, that can also slow down your metabolism, slow down your cellular respiration, and slow down your energy levels. And when your energy, how you make energy are your cells are rubbing together, creating heat. When they're not rubbing together, when they're not creating enough energy, that will lower your temperature. And REM and deep sleep. So this is another metric to focus on. And this is how, if you're not getting the ideal levels, these are certain variables that you can work on in order to get the metrics that you want. So sleep quality is more important than sleep duration, because 8 hours of sleep is irrelevant if it's 8 hours of shit sleep. So instead of focusing only on the time in bed or time asleep, make sure you're getting enough deep and REM levels. If you're sleeping, 8.5, 9 hours, but your REM and deep levels are, 30 minutes, that's not good sleep. And this is why getting an Oura ring and metrics are so important, because a lot of people think that's good sleep, but they really have no idea. So if your REM levels aren't ideal, what you can do is find your ideal room temperatures. So cooler the better. I usually recommend between 62 and 68 degrees, which I believe is around 15 to 20 degrees Celsius. And then getting consistent sleep and wake times. So if you are someone who consistently wakes up at, 8 in the morning, but let's say you go to catch a flight and you're waking up at 5 a.m., you're going to skip that last cycle of REM. So make sure you're not skipping that last cycle of REM. You're not waking up too early than what your body is expecting. So try and get consistent sleep and wake times. And then also blackout curtains. So a lot of the times people will wake up and the sun is coming through their windows. That sun will actually wake them up prematurely. And one thing that people don't realize is that when it comes to your cells and, blackout curtains and sleep masks, is that they conducted a study where someone was wearing a sleep mask and they shined a light on the back of their knee and it actually disrupted their sleep. Now, how this happens is basically every cell in your skin has photoreceptors. This is how you take vitamin D and synthesize it with cholesterol. Photoreceptors can pick up on light. So even if you have a face mask, you can still get disrupted by the sun shining through your window. So what I recommend is splurging on getting long-term blackout curtains and using them as much as possible. And then also, improving REM is improving your HRV. And then if you want to improve your deep, what I recommend is no screens or work 2 hours prior to bed. And do not eat a heavy meal 2 hours before bed. Only use your room for sex and sleep. So no work, no watching scary movies, reading is fine, but it has to be things that calm your mind, not excite it. And then also having a caffeine curfew. I usually recommend, no later than 12 p.m. usually. And steps. This is the last metric I recommend you guys to track. So for exercise, we recommend lifting 3 to 5 times a week, depending on your preference. However, on days you do not lift, try hitting 10,000 steps per day. This will help you stay active and stay lean. I swear, guys, walking the 10,000 extra steps, this is the number one tool to stay lean and lose weight. It's pretty crazy how something so metabolically not demanding, as walking is, can actually be a major tool in your toolbox of staying lean and keeping off the extra weight. So what we recommend is take a long walk as part of your morning routine, and then as well as during lunch. This will help you get your daily vitamin D levels as well as sync your circadian rhythm. So another aspect is when you're syncing your circadian rhythm, your morning and wind down routine, they actually start early in the morning when you get that first sunlight. So as a morning routine, I always recommend people to get outside, get your natural sunlight on your skin, and that way it will tell your body that it's early in the morning and the rest of your hormones will know when to set off for the rest of the day. So this concludes the first module on week 2. Now we made some changes. So instead of doing a summary at the end of the modules, we're going to start including a cheat sheet or a notes worksheet at the end of each module, giving you guys detailed notes so you don't have to take them. So from here on, watching every module, don't worry about taking notes as we will provide them in the description box. So I'll see you guys in the next video.